Woo! Yeah, this was some pretty hot scalloping. Episode 26. Special guest today, Manuel Kettenring again. And yeah, we are looking into the Super Strat and some more high gain territory. Kind of the evolution from my vintage world to my childhood days, the 80s. Yeah. I remember in my early days, I played the single coil Strat as usual, okay, but I had a few guys that I taught the guitar to because I needed the money. You know, being 20, I know 2 chords more than the next guy, so I showed them the other chords. And then, you know, Ozzy Osbourne came along and Randy Rhoads, and this was the first time I heard kind of, you know, this kind of 80s hair metal. And some killer guitar playing. So for me, this was kind of the first impression that I got from the style of music. What was your impression about the 80s?
I mean, I was born in 1981, so...
Okay. Okay, you are so young, fuck
yeah,
man.
so my first impression, I mean, we talked a little bit about that in episode... what is it? Number 13. When we did the Brown Sound.
Yeah.
My first experience was, of course, a Strat player. It was Ritchie Blackmore.
Yeah.
When my dad showed me the old Deep Purple records. And then after Ritchie, the next big player was, of course, Eddie.
Yeah.
But back then, I didn't realize what Eddie was playing, what he was using.
Yeah.
But my first guitar was a humbucker single coil Strat style guitar. Was really cheap.
What brand guitar. Do you remember the brand?
Let me think. I think it was Rockwood.
Oh, Rockwood. Okay, that sounds very expensive. Yeah.
The company doesn't
exist anymore.
Yeah.
There must be there's a reason for that. Yes.
Yeah, that's a good reason for that. And then I got my first Fender Strat.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the Fender Strat was single coil.
It was single coil.
Okay, so you started on the humbucker single coil, and then went back for the authentic classic Strat.
Yeah. But something that I realized really quick was that I couldn't get the sound out of the Stratocaster that I wanted or I needed for the music that I wanted to play, especially when I learned all the Van Halen stuff. And that was, for me, the first step when I thought I have to do a little bit of research what my heroes are playing. And believe it or not, back in the early 90s when I started playing guitar, I also didn't have YouTube. So
This was
I needed the old, what do you call the VHS cassettes?
The videotapes.
Yeah. And I bought some guitar lesson videos from
this was
some
big.
of the guys.
Yeah, Paul Gilbert.
Yeah, Paul Gilbert.
Vinnie Moore.
What
else did I have? Eric Johnson.
I remember the Yngwie Malmsteen guitar lesson. And one thing that really impressed me was the John Petrucci, the Rock Discipline DVD from John Petrucci. Yeah. It was a little bit boring watching it, but he had some good advices and some good licks or technique, how to practice something. That was really helpful. But to be honest, it was not the sound that I was looking for. You know, I had the sound in my ears from the early Van Halen albums. I had then later after Van Halen, there were a lot of metal bands that I listened to before I went back in time. So I listened. I liked Dream Theater a lot back in the days. I liked, let's say, Iron Maiden, of course. And when I saw Iron Maiden, I knew, okay, they are playing a Stratocaster, but it looks different.
Right.
And then I began to understand that it's basically this kind of guitar.
The shape of the
The
body
shape,
is
the body,
is a Strat.
yeah. And but some things were really, really different, and that was the time when I went out to my music store and asked, do you have a guitar like that?
Right, yeah.
But it was not that easy back then to get one of them.
I know. I mean, at the beginning, things were totally different because these new hot guitars were not available because it was a new trend, and you know, now the market is saturated by this kind of guitar because it became a classic, and you know, all the dealers understood to order that product so they can show that product. But at the very earliest, you had a Fender and a Gibson and a Fender twin reverb and maybe a Marshall. In those days, when I experienced this kind of Super Strat thing, there was nothing. There was still the classic guitars in the store, and little by little they got it, and people were maybe doing modifications. I mean, I noticed, you know, me with my regular Strat teaching, I had something like when just get the regular Strat here. Oops, you stay, please stay. Okay, and then, you know, going to my It's not that bad with the boost and everything, but it's not that oomph. The oomph was not missing. For me, I was really tempted because I already had that guitar at that time. And I was tempted to convert that guitar into a Super Strat. I was lucky that I didn't do that. And the reason for that was because I heard Gary Moore with his 61 Red Strat on German television on the Rockpalast. And he had that kind of tone that had enough gain for me and was kind of, I knew I liked that kind of vintage vibe, and I could see somebody doing also that a little bit more modern thing with a classic Strat. So he kind of saved that guitar for me because he demonstrated that I can do something in that direction too with a vintage Strat. And but he was also playing Charvels, and you know.
Yeah, of course. And for me, Gary was someone. For me, Gary was always someone who played. I always saw him playing Les Paul. So, but that was after he used the Strat. That's something that I had to realize, or had to go back in time.
To understand,
that
he comes from a Strat.
Yeah, that he's
this is because
Strat player.
Because you saw Gary Moore as the guy with the still got the blues, you know.
Absolutely,
kind of thing. Okay, I know Gary Moore much longer. I mean, in Colosseum too, this was like 70s jazz rock, you know, with John Heisman on drums and Don Airey, who's now on keyboard, and they did a. Okay, I need more Marshall. You know, all this kind of Mahavishnu inspired, complex 70s, we are so different, intellectual jazz rock. And so he had that kind of background, and he used, you know, this kind of chords, and then he had, my killer album was the Corridors of Power album. I don't know if you know that. Oh, get that one, because this is the album where Gary played his ass off in his solo career. The first album was with the Back on the Streets again, and he played, you know, he was still inspired by Phil Lynott and the stuff, but the Corridors of Power album was when Eddie Van Halen was around, and he had to prove that he is one of them. And it was clear this new hair metal was out there, and Gary tried to step up to the same level. And the thing is, on the record, I think he used all kinds of guitars, but in this particular live show on German television, I could see him with a vintage Strat playing that kind of thing. And there's a, what's the song? Actually, it's kind of a rip-off. Mistreated is the Deep Purple song, but he had a song that was similar. Fuck, what? What's the song? I've been looking. Fuck, man. If somebody knows, please send the comment. Yeah. It was the Ballad on the Corridors of Power album. What was it? Ian Pace on drums, Don Airy keyboards, you know, and he was playing Wait Until Tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay, that's the song.
That one I know.
Okay, and he was playing this beautiful, you know. You know, my cup of tea. I was so influenced and so shocked by this intensity. Yeah. But in this form, my style was based on the vintage Strat, but having this kind of hair metal energy on the vintage background. Yeah. So this is like, in brackets, my connection with that time. And now we can talk about the puristic humbucker technical approach, how the LA guys were doing it. Yeah. And if you look on, well, this is a cover from a, what is it? A Taylor neck pickup. So the Taylor neck pickup had a metal cover like a Les Paul. Oh, my Les Paul is downstairs today. So this kind of thing covers the pickup and dampens the highs. And you know, the first thing you can see on a Super Strat is anything that covers a pickup is not there anymore. Yeah. Because it's about open sound, it's about more output, it's about you know, the full 9 yards. Yeah. And the other thing is, this is a classic tremolo block. Yep. And when you look at, you know, what model is this? Is this a real Floyd Rose?
Floyd Rose, I think 2000?
Don't ask me about specific. So it's a Floyd Rose.
You know, I don't really care about I know there are a lot of guys who ask, is it a real Floyd or is it something else? I mean, it is an original Floyd Rose, but it's not the. It's not one of those. This is an old one. This is really an old Floyd.
So and you can tell the difference is the old one. They had to get the wood out under the tremolo, like this one here. Yeah. So and this is kind of made to enhance the range. So when you this is not possible on a vintage trem. No. But on the other hand, you can see the block is very small. Yeah. And the funny thing is, for a vintage tone, that doesn't work. But for that kind of hair metal tone, it does work. Yeah. Because all that kind of twang and this rich ong dang dang dang, which comes from the vintage blocks, you know, heavy blocks like this, is not needed if you have a humbucker, because the full kind of velocity curve of the note is different. It's like pang, and it's not so long because you have tons of sustain coming from overdrive.
Please take your Strat, your vintage Strat. Yeah. You can hear that without using the amp. It's say the
snap
of the string. This is much more, let's say, organic, or there is more wood in the tone, and this is more, say, sterile or.
Yeah, it has an attack, and then it's something afterwards. Yeah, but it's more attack based.
Yeah,
and this.
Absolutely. But that's needed because if you're playing, and for you guys, I am plugged into the orange. You need that to handle the gain, to give it a structure. Yeah,
absolutely. If I do this on my single coil guitar, this is pretty good already. First thing is, you notice it's not enough output, and just I leave it like that and just take another guitar.
I mean, the single coil has
nice
some
attack.
kind of the same attack, but it's. How can you describe that?
It's not rich enough.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's also not just. It's not just only the attack. It's the doom 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 doom. I have to do it like that. It is what happens. Is the tone what happens after the attack?
Right. Yeah.
So that's the biggest difference. And you need a pickup system and a tremolo bar that does all that for you.
That character.
Yeah.
It's a certain character which is different from the vintage stuff.
Yeah.
And it's kind of one foundation for that classic hair metal tone.
Yeah.
And you know, I've always tried to get in this kind of territory, but I use that guitar, and then I've had to find, you know, boosters and things to kind of tweak that curve or modify it. But I was never able to get to the real deal like this one.
Yeah.
So I have to admit it. I can fake it, and it has maybe a beauty of its own, but it's never that, you know. And this is like instant rock hero. I mean, you play this, I haven't changed anything. And this is like, you know, it's so rich, it's so powerful. Yeah. I'm a rock hero playing that sound.
Yeah. And I had to learn that too, because I like the sound of a traditional Stratocaster. I like the sound of a traditional, especially Les Paul sound. But, you know, for me, for my playing and for what I need a guitar, you know, I had so many guitars over the years, and I was never really happy with. I always thought I need a Strat with 3 single coils. I need a Les Paul. So I had a Les Paul custom. I had a custom shop 60s, whatever, heavy relic, Fender Strat, whatever. But I always came back to this type of guitar.
Mm-hmm. So that's your.
That is
you.
Yeah, that's my guitar.
Yeah.
This is the guitar that I use at home. This is the guitar that I use for rehearsal, for live gigs, for pretty much everything.
Okay, and this is based on the Steel Panther guitar, because I mean I know the color.
yeah.
It's very.
I mean, this specific guitar is the Satchel signature model from Charvel. And
Charvel now belongs also to Fender. They bought the brand.
Yes, it's written on the headstock here.
Okay, I see. Yeah.
It belongs to Fender.
They bought a lot of brands. Yeah.
They are allowed to do that original
headstock.
Yeah.
Which, to understand the whole history, is protected.
Yeah.
And back in the days, you know, they simply used replacement parts and put some bigger frets on it.
Yeah.
And this was the starting point for a Super Strat, which was simply a Strat body like Eddie Van Halen.
Yeah.
You know, he took a Strat body, boom, he digged in the wood, made some extra room for the humbucker. Yeah. And the same thing with the necks. They had spare parts modified to do these guitars. And then they had painted them in super bright colors.
Yeah.
You know, stick hot pickups in there.
Yeah.
And reduce no tone control. You know, no nothing.
Yeah.
You know, nobody wants a tone control on a 80s hair metal 80s guitar.
But in this guitar, we have also a very, very modern version of a pickup system.
Okay.
This is the,
This is a Fluence.
Someone is asking about the Fluence
Fishman, yeah.
Fishman pickups. So
They are stock?
They are stock,
Yeah.
yeah, but only at this model.
Okay, let's explain the difference between standard pickups, humbuckers, and Fluence pickups. So, you know, if you look at the standard single coil, maybe I showed in another episode, it's the super simplest design. It is kind of 6 magnets, and around the 6 magnets they put the wire, and the coil with the wire that is with just a little cardboard here and there is stuck into a cover so it doesn't fall apart, and that's it. That's as simple as it gets to make a single coil. Then the humbucker uses 2 of those coils, and they've been on a plate, and then they put a cover on. This was the original nice PAF design we showed in another episode. And then when this kind of pickup came around, they took the PAF pickup and they removed the cover to get a brighter tone, and they simply screw that directly to the wood. Some people tell that makes also a lot of difference, not having a scratch plate and the pickup connected to be on the scratch plate versus the pickup directly screwed to the wood. To me, it makes sense. I haven't tested that myself, so I can't prove it. Maybe you or somebody. No. But anyway, the story is if the pickup is connected straight to the body, that's the way to get that sound. So, and then as the electronics moved on, Fishman was the first one that I know. He used kind of the stuff here, which is used for PCBs for electronics. By the way, this is my little logo from my childhood state when I was Blugy. I did a Mesa Boogie clone myself, and this was my logo to replace because it was like a Japanese kind of copy that I modded to make it my own. But this material is like used for PCBs, and the Fluence pickup uses a modern multi-layer PCB technology. So I mean, by now,
do we have a picture?
Yeah. So by now, the industry is able to replace all the windings, which used to be the wire by layers on a PCB. So the PCB has hundreds, thousands of layers, very thin, just as thick as a wire, so they can print the pickups. And this is the technology that is used on the Fluence pickups from Fishman, from Larry Fishman. Yeah,
and this allows Fishman, the Fishman Fluence pickups to get 2 different. That's really something special, to get 2 different voicings
out of one pickup.
Out of one pickup. So also the single coil pickups. Then if somebody knows the Greg Koch
single coil signature.
Set, he has also 2 different voicings with his single coil setting. And here it is the same. I have 2 voicings. One is more kind of the old traditional PAF sounding direction, And the second direction is more the, let's say, the 80s, more mid-focused range. And you can hear that, especially when you're playing high gain. So if I play a chord, it's the way that the pickup screams. That's the difference. It's more in the mids. It's less highs.
And it's more focused in the mid. It jumps on the, in front of the whole spectrum. And, I tested the pickups in the single coil format for myself. I was impressed that this kind of new technology can do that, and it didn't sound, it sounded good, but I am the vintage geek, and I stay with the traditional pickups. But I totally get the picture why people that use high gain love that pickups, because they are more controlled. They have less of that vintage magic, shoe shine creaminess, which is actually not needed from a pickup. For the high gain guys, it's more about getting an instant reaction without all this fancy, patina, extra nuances. It's like, bam, give me the tone. And this is what this kind of pickup design can deliver. And this is part of the character which I was missing on the single coil vintage sound side from the Fluent single coils, to my personal taste and to the real old tone. But I do understand that these pickups are great for that kind of direction.
Absolutely. And what I like about them is that they are very, very unnoisy.
And this is the biggest advantage in the technology, is because it's so controlled, because it's printed. It's the PCB, this kind of layering, this is so precise. And you can design the pickup, the hum cancelling effect, so precise that there is literally no chance to get hum.
I mean, even if you're playing a guitar with traditional humbuckers, I mean, the hum cancelling, it is much better than with single coils. Everybody knows that, but
it's never perfect. It's not
in
never
this
like this.
Case, this is really, 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 really good, because there is almost no noise.
So to understand the technical background of the humbucker is one coil picks up signal and the other coil picks up the same signal, but they are kind of phase reversed, and this should cancel the hum. But now the question is, are both coils actually picking up exactly the same signal? And just because the coils are apart is already a difference. And that difference will never be cancelled. So this difference will stay. So, and when you design a pickup like that, you can do the cancelling. I don't know how he does it, one layer and the next layer the humbucking, just on top of each other or something like that. You are free to do crazy stuff like that. And it works.
Absolutely,
So, okay, back to the Super Strat. So we discussed a little bit about the pickups. We discussed about the tremolo system. There's one thing about the locking. Of course, doing dive bombs and going crazy is a thing that brings a guitar usually out of tune. So they came up with this, with all kinds of idea, but finally it's like locking the strings. What I find a bit bizarre is when a string breaks on a guitar like that, I don't get it. And I'm not so experienced to do that, because I play strats all my life, and if I find a hole, I can do it in a few bars in the song.
Not in this case.
Not in this case. It's like, okay, wow, where's the ball end?
There is no ball end.
So you have to get this. You come from this side, then you go here, you put the end there, then this is kind of clamped with this screw here. So I found out to set up a guitar with a modern Floyd Rose style trem takes a lot more time. Once it's done, it of course stays better in tune. And if you have strings that last long, it's okay. Because you can rely on the mechanics of the guitar for a while.
I mean, on this guitar, the difference between here and here is...
This is free floating?
This is free.
You can go up and down.
Can do both sides.
No sound.
No sound. Okay.
And here,
And this one?
only up, and there's
Only up, yeah.
sorry, only down.
Only down, yeah.
Other direction is blocked.
So if a string breaks on this guitar, it doesn't matter
Because
the guitar won't go out of tune.
the rest of the strings will stay
In this
tune.
case, and on your guitar,
it's a
yeah.
nightmare. It's over.
The gig is over.
I've been there many times. Drum solo. Drum solo is a good solution for that, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, so cool.
I mean, that's also something that you have to learn if you're using that kind of guitar. I always put new strings on when I have gigs. When I have a gig,
to make sure.
to make sure that no string breaks
Yeah.
during the gig. I did that a lot of times,
Yeah.
and after the second or third song, I thought, oh man, why didn't you?
What strings did you use? Which brand and which did they? Let me know. Just out of curiosity. You could break strings. Which brand was it?
Ernie Ball.
Ernie Ball.
Yeah.
The old ones.
Yeah, the old ones.
I had the same experience, and now I have to. Julian, can you give me the strings, please? Package. Yeah. Okay.
Two, actually.
Yeah. Okay. So here, and I use those. The what is hybrid slinkies, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
So this is a little advertising, because in the old days they had these strings, the slinkies, and the problem was I killed them like crazy.
Yeah.
And
Me too.
Yeah. And then they came up with this thing called RPS, reinforced plain strings, and this is working now. Finally,
Yeah.
I don't break these strings anymore. My nephew is from Hamburg. He also plays the guitar, and his uncle gave him the old strings always. And he founded a band which was later called the Kill Strings, because he played Ernie Ball strings all the time, and he was killing strings all the time, which was the old Ernie Balls.
Yeah.
So actually this made the band name.
Yeah.
Courtesy of Ernie Ball. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I finally found my strings now that I'm using. For me, the best strings at the moment are the D'Addario NYXL.
Okay.
Because these strings are now on my guitar for 3 months.
Okay, and they're still.
And they are
fresh.
Sounding great.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, and I found too that strings, you know, me, the vintage guy, I played piccato strings just because Richie Blackmore, my hero, was playing piccatos. Okay, and there's some magic about it. Yeah, and then I played Fender strings, and I like the Fender strings too for certain tones. And then I found these Ernie Balls, and I loved the tone. Then I got used to the tone, and I was living with breaking strings for at least 2 decades.
Yep.
And I had exactly that feeling. Oh, if I play an important gig, I had to use fresh strings. And then when they came with the new version of the strings, I was relieved. I tried other strings. I have to admit there are maybe better strings, but what is better? I got used to that tone, so I cannot change anymore, because everything kind of now follows that kind of guitar with, you know.
I mean, during my time at session, I
The
tried
music shop,
almost
everything.
any kind of strings. During that time, I tried especially Ernie Ball. They came out with the Cobalt.
Oh yeah, the
strings,
Cobalt. Yeah, no, yeah.
And I didn't like them.
No, me neither. I mean, you know.
I don't know why. I cannot really explain it why, but
to me they sound cold.
Yeah, and what I also didn't like the feeling.
Yeah. Well. For me, it's over. The problem is I'm socialized with these old strings, and I'm too old to change. I'm just I'm sorry, I'm just like that. And I met people that offered me great strings where I actually can prove that I like the qualities of DNR strings, for example. They have like one set that is probably better, but I'm so used to anything, and I kind of, it's too late for me. But yeah, so what's the message for the people out there is try to find your strength before you get old and have a problem to change. Yeah. One other thing about the Super Strat is the fingerboard, the fretboard, and the radius. Coming from the vintage guitars, you have like a 9.25 or whatever vintage radius.
Sometimes it's
seven
7.25 to 9.5,
something like
something.
this.
Yeah.
So that's the vintage world. Yeah. I always kind of modded my guitars in the way that I could bend the strings, because I didn't want to have them too high. You know, my strings. Maybe the camera can show it. My strings height is not low, but it's also not high. And the idea of modifying the neck in the upper range to kind of use sandpaper and make it flatter in the mid was simply to make the bending range, get a bigger bending range.
Yeah.
Don't get stuck.
Yeah.
That's the classic Strat problem. The Super Strat doesn't have that problem because they start with a flatter range.
Yeah, most of them have a 12-inch radius or more. I mean,
which means flat.
I'm not exactly sure.
Yeah.
But I believe this guitar has a so-called compound radius. So it starts with a 12-inch and goes up to a 16-inch radius.
And this is what I've done on my vintage guitar. It starts with a 7 original radius in the lower frets here. And when I go up by removing the middle part of the frets here, it becomes flatter to whatever. I had never measured it, but I guess it's at least a 10 or something like that.
Yeah. Because that's also something that some companies realized. Why is a compound radius
cool,
interesting? Because if you're playing riffs, you need that, or it's more comfortable to play a chord when you have more of that curve
in the middle.
Yeah.
And me, the vintage guys, I feel that if I don't have that flash in the middle or that kind of little hill, it feels like, ooh, I'm digging a hole because my fingers already memorized it.
Yeah, that's something that I don't like. That's I need I need some of that curve to feel good in the low position. Because my finger is not straight when I'm barring my
same here.
The chord. I don't have a straight finger. The finger is have a little curved. So it feels a little bit better, but when I go up on the neck, I need that straight, more straight radius to get a much lower string action.
Yeah, otherwise you have to put the strings up so high so they don't.
Yeah, and especially when.
Cool. And then they put up these Gibson-style jumbo frets or medium jumbos, 6100, 6105.
6105, yeah.
Which is higher frets, which make the feeling of the Strat. You don't touch the wood of the neck.
Exactly.
And this makes bending easier.
Yeah. And that is also something that I always told my customers. Especially when they were interested in the Yngwie Malmsteen or Ritchie Blackmore signature guitar.
You're talking
you have the same, you have the same fretboard here on your ESP. It's the scalloped fretboard. So
well, this starts normal, and then it becomes scalloped.
Scallop. And I always told them, No, it doesn't make you play faster. It's just the feeling is different because you get much better under your string when you're bending.
Yeah, I noticed, maybe it's true, maybe not, we can try, that the tone might change a little bit when I go up there. Let's try. One day I have the impression it's rounder.
Yeah, I have to be honest. I once had the Yngwie Malmsteen Strat myself.
Okay.
And I learned on this guitar how much pressure
to put
is needed
and what is too much.
And what is too much.
Yeah.
That's something you can learn
from this
kind of fretboard.
Because, you know, just to show the people, it's like I play a note with soft touch. That's that pitch. And now I make hard touch.
Yeah.
This is all pressure.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So if you feel like angry and you're totally out of tune, it's like on this guitar. You know? It sounds horrible. But it can be okay when you have a light touch.
Yeah.
And this is what Yngwie has and Blackmore has. If you cramp, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
But I think you can hear the difference when I can show when I do. It's warmer.
Yeah.
So, and here comes the thing about my Strat, my 61. This is worn out so much that it is almost scalloped. And this is what. Maybe that's why I like that guitar so much, because it has this round. I like the tone, you know. And when I play a regular Strat, it's not a thing. And I did an experiment with my copy of that guitar, which is the BluGuitar, which is here. And if you look very closely, you can see this is slightly scalloped.
Oh yeah.
So what I found out is, you know, when I not doing the slight scallop job makes the guitar nice but ordinary. But this extra blooming comes from
what kind of pickups do you have inside there?
This is Klopman. This is my signature set, the Blug set 2. I got 2 sets with Andreas, and this is and this is like bridge, so no dummy coil, so you can hear. But anyway. That's the thing about the higher frets, little bit of scalloping. I noticed 2 things, because I've built some of these guitars by now, and I can compare and I can treat them, and I have them not treated, before and after comparisons. And I noticed the same guitar with higher frets sounds different when I have this touch of scalloping. So I want my guitars like that. Okay, that's me. But this is the vintage Strat approach. No, the Super Strat approach on a vintage guitar. So that's a super vintage Strat. Yeah. Anyway, and this is a good example of the fact that you can learn from anything you do. So if people go, I hate metal, I hate whatever, I just play the blues. Sorry guys, in every genre, in every style, in every tone, there is something you can learn for a world that's totally different. You know, and the arrogance of telling people it's shit closes the door to a lot of information that might be good for you.
That's right.
Yeah, and so I try to be open. I'm honest, some of the music I cannot stand for 20 hours. I'm not a metal guy, so 20 hours of metal music makes me a heart attack. I enjoy the energy for a short moment, killer.
Yep.
But I'm very interested in about how it works, how their sound works, how the energy works, and all that stuff, because I can learn from it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's the thing. So maybe I put my wah-wah in, and wait a minute. We have another song from the famous band which invented metal. So I try to make the Kirk now, Captain Kirk.
Should we tell the people what
we
you
do?
are playing? And okay, I already told
okay.
that I'm playing the
Orange.
Rockerverb right now.
Yeah, let's explain what we're doing, and then we come to the part where we compare different amps. So Manuel is currently using the Rockerverb Orange, and I'm using the Mercury edition here. I can switch from the Mercury to the Iridium, but I play that amp because that's kind of closer to the Rockerverb. I have the feeling, and so whatever. It seems to work for now. Yeah, we do the comparison after the song, and we play that classic tune from Metallica. Let's see. doesn't matter. We don't hear anything. This was the end. Oh, I missed my solo too.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. Okay. So the Kirk Hammett thing is always when he goes to solo, whatever song is. You Need a Crybaby.
Yeah.
And then yeah, but what is the beauty in the tone of Metallica? Well, for me, I have to say that the singer, what's his name?
James Hetfield.
Hetfield and his rhythm guitar is spot on. I cannot play. It's so. So fucking fast, and he does a downstroke.
Yeah, he does downstroke. I cannot do that. I can't do that.
High respect.
High respect.
Yeah. And here's another story from the classic rock guys. I heard that in Queen, Brian May couldn't play some of the tunes because he was also not fast enough.
Okay.
So the drummer, Roger Taylor, was playing, I think, the song Sheer Heart Attack.
Really?
Yeah, because it was another. Yeah, so beware the drummers. They can do it. So Hetfield is probably also a killer drummer, whatever.
It's the in Metallica. It's that rawness of their sound, that brutal rawness of their guitar tone, especially James' guitar tone. That to me is and still the Black album. So some guys like it, some guys don't like it.
But it's a killer tone.
But it's a killer production. For me, it's still the best sounding metal record ever.
Yeah, and I mean, today, if you listen to that album, it's vintage metal already. So, I mean, there's the new metal, and there's kind of so many things that are way faster, way more complex, and whatever. But I get, to me, Metallica is that I, even as the vintage guy, starts to understand why that music works and what it does to people. Yeah. There's the energy and there's the beauty in tone. They got their tones. Everything is spot on. They have a killer drum sound, So if I would play in a metal band, I would probably be the drummer. Anyway, so that's all good. How many questions do we have, or shall we do the sound comparison first? Questions. Okay, let's start here. Paul Schlachter. I heard that name before. Are the Fishman fluent stock on that shovel? We answered this already. Which means that these are stock.
Yeah.
Nick Bland. Interesting. Could we please hear the Satchel Fluence picker through the amp1 channels? Sure. I give you my cable. And you plug into the amp1. And now you... So this is the Mercury edition with the tone. Let me check where the tone is set. The tone is clockwise, so it's a bit harder than I usually do.
Okay.
I put it on the other side, which is the vintage setting.
Yeah.
And this. And just to show people how easy it is, this is set to clockwise, which is metal, and this is middle position, and the bass a little bit more 7, but it doesn't make a big difference. So it's basically middle position and the gain on 6 because there's output enough for that kind of tone. On the modern channel, maybe I switch the same guitar to the vintage channel on the Iridium. Okay, try it. Yeah, so the pickups work with both amps.
Yeah.
So, and of course, this amp sounds a bit different from this one, but the question was more about the pickups than about the amps, but we could show that the amp 1 can take these pickups. Yeah, because you want to hear more different channels. We can, let's try something.
Yeah, let's try something.
I try the vintage channel. Yeah. Can we hear the other sound?
Yeah, of course.
The more classic sound on the vintage channel, just to see.
That's the classic. That's the
okay.
more the PAF.
Yeah, so it works also on the vintage channel and some other tones, more classic sound. Okay, so this was the pickup question. Hi Hachi Idigiam. Wow. Can you clean the volume tone with Fishman pickups like the Strat? Okay, yeah, I'm here on the classic channel. Cool. And now. Okay, it cleans up. Vintage channel. Okay, does the job. It cleans up when you roll down the volume. Kevin J, can amp 1 or amp X be even smaller? And when are you releasing the mini versions? Okay, first thing, the amp 1 and the amp X is actually packed. The only room there still is underneath the foot switches, but all the rest is kind of everything electronics is squeezed. There's not much room, and this little room that there is, it's needed for cooling purposes. And mind that this is a proper 100 watt nanotube amp, which gives peaks of 180 watts or whatever. I rated 100 watts. Other brands rate their amps 200 watts, but this is 100 watts at 16 ohms, like a 100 watt tube amp. So this has a headroom when it comes to the clipping even, and then we can measure the voltage, then you can see it's even 150 or 180 watts on a 16 ohm cabinet. Some of the mini heads out there, they produce maybe 50 watts, but on 4 ohms. And if you plug them into a Marshall cabinet with 16 ohms, then there's 12.5 watts left. For home use, no problem, but this is a proper thing. And this requires a bit more room, therefore, but I think it's super compact. Hey, if you think this amp is heavy and big, try to lift one of those. You know, this is the 3rd floor in this building, and I refused to do it myself in the case. So, you know, this is small enough, I believe. So the answer to this question is, I'm not getting any smaller than this. Okay, Gabrielle Foschini. That sounds, I would like to eat that. Okay, hi Thomas. I have the Amp1 Blue Box and Fat Cap. I love it. Thanks for the great job. I have a question. Could you suggest me how to cut through the band mix during the solo? EQ, increase the volume. Okay, so you have a beautiful sound. Blah, blah, blah. Could be with the Blue Box or anything. It's a general question. So, and now you want a solo boost. The same answer as usual is this is a passive volume control that can be bypassed with a switch.
Is it a minus booster?
Yeah, that's a minus booster. And you can build this actually yourself. It is like a volume control between in and output and a bypass for it. So if you do the bypass, you have the full volume, which could be your solo volume, and then you can reduce for rhythm volume. And this will not change the tone. You put that into your effects loop, because if you put that in front of the amplifier, it will reduce the gain. But if you put that in the effects loop, it only will reduce the volume. So that's one way to get a second master volume in a pedal. Yeah, I had this question so many times. Yeah, just buy one of these or build them yourself. They're so easy to make yourself. It's nothing. It's just a pot and the in and outs. The other option would be that you use a pedal. It could be a boost pedal that maybe has an EQ function as well. So this spark boost, for instance, can be used as a kind of neutral boost, and then you can maybe have a little EQing, so you have more in the tone, and this kind of mids will cut through the mix in the band frequencies. Or you buy one of those 7-band EQs or something. So EQing could also be a way how to make the guitar sound more present. Is it better? It's different. Me personally, I like that better, because if I have my tone, it's a volume thing, and I don't want to change the tone. Other people prefer to have a tone that is slightly different for their solos, and then that's another option. Or you have a different channel. So that's something that I can do with my Amp1. Is I have like 3 foot switches, and I have like 2 different overdrive sounds, and one is like more a rhythm sound, and one is like more a lead sound. So I have a different channel with a different volume and a different EQ. So this is my Here I Am Rockstar solo tone, and the other one is my I'm a sensitive blues rock kind of guy that is not too offensive. Yeah. But you know, I have the offensive switch that gives Here I Am. There are several options, but you know, option 1, option 2, and the channel option 3. Okay, more questions, or is this that's it for now? There's more, a new question. Hallo Thomas, German question. Du hast schon mal eine Gitarre mit Dematio Super Distortion gespielt? Ja, ich habe auch schon mal eine Gitarre mit Super Distortion. In English, hey Thomas, have you ever played a guitar with Dematio Super Distortion pickups? Yes, I played this kind of pickup. Again, this is the kind of pickup which is great for the Super Strat. And I'm honest, I'm the vintage guy. So I know what it is, but it's not, I cannot recommend it because I'm too much a vintage nerd that then probably goes more into something like this Van Halen, because to me, I'm excited about that guitar because it simply, you know, works for me in that way. Or I like the ESP here with the Seymour Duncans. To me, it's a bit more traditionally based, and DiMarzio, to me, to my taste, was always a bit kind of over the top for my vintage approach, but maybe that's exactly what you want.
I believe this Super Distortion was the pickup that Ace Frehley used in Kiss back in the days to get more output of his amp.
Yeah. So that's probably a killer pickup. I have to double check it. If you name it Ace Frehley, that's old enough for me.
Yeah.
You know. Okay. Let's check that out. Okay. Next question. Matt Mitchell. Hello Thomas. How often do you change strings on your main guitar, and will the remote one be relevant for Amp X? Okay. 2 questions. How often do I change strings? Well, not that often anymore since Ernie Ball increased their quality. And I'm a lazy guy. I'm honest. And playing a vintage Strat means if you put on new strings, the guitar gets out of tune. I bend them and I stretch them, but the first gig always is tuning gig. So I rather play old strings and take the risk of maybe a string breaks. So now with COVID-19, I don't play that much. They are probably on the guitar for over half a year. If I have a super important gig, I put them on before the rehearsal and to make sure the guitar stays in tune and I'm safe. But at this point, no need. And when I play with my own band, Rock Anarchy, you know, everybody's waiting for the drum solo anyhow because I do too many guitar solos. So, you know, I love to play old strings, all good. Okay, next question. Wait a minute, there was a part 2, wasn't there? I think there was the string and the other thing. And will the remote one be relevant for Amp X? The remote one will work with Amp X, yes. But here are the plans, which is I will do a remote X one day. The reason for that is in Europe we are sold out of remote ones. So if somebody still has a remote one, you are lucky. I have one here, but a few stores have remote ones. When we the remote one will work with Amp X, but when we do a new version of the remote one, we will make maybe a few more functions. But this is, hey, down the line, 22. Something like that. So, you know, we are a small company that is very passionate, that works night and day, has a few hours of sleep in between. But, it will come, and the remote one can switch the Amp X. Okay, next question. Hi Thomas, thanks for sharing all your knowledge with us. Can I ask you about the Blue Box? I remember somewhere one of the YouTube videos you said it needs to be connected to the power alone. What do you mean by that? I mean, the Blue Box needs power, and so there's 9 to whatever, 18 volts. Be careful with the 18 volts because some power supplies deliver a bit more than 18 volts. They are rated 18, and if there's not enough load, they probably bring out 20 volts, and then the Blue Box doesn't work. So 9, 12 is always safe, 18 only if it's in that kind of thing. So the thing is, if you have a power supply that makes daisy chain, which means there's one output on your power supply, and you connect that power to maybe your tube screamer, and then to the next pedal, and to the next pedal, and to the blue box. You run into a big problem because the ground of the power supply connects this pedal, maybe the tube screamer, and the blue box. And mind that the blue box is used on the speaker out, and the other pedals might be used in front of the amp, which is usually the case. And then you connect the ground from the input to the ground of the output. Not a good idea. So you should have a separate, isolated power supply for the blue box, so you don't connect the ground from the output side to the input side. That will squeal and make funny noises. Oh yeah, here we have the blue box. Can we show the blue box? Yeah, and here you can see this is the inlet. There are some modern power supplies that have isolated outputs with DC-DC coupling, decoupling actually. No, DC-DC coupling, but decoupling the ground, which can do this in one housing. But best is you have two separate power supplies and it will simply work. I know this kind of technical thing can be a problem. So if you build your own pedal board, be aware that there might be some issues with the power supplies because it's complex. It has nothing to do with the design of the units. It has something to do with the complexity of the signal path on your power or on your pedal board with all these audio signals and the power signals. Okay, next question. I am interested in the amp 1 Mercury. If I use it with a standard 2x12 cabinet with creambacks, is it loud enough in the band, the drummer and the bass player? Schöne Grüße aus Wien. Okay, German. No, Vienna, Austrian guy. A 2x12 cabinet, Mercury, is definitely loud enough. I play the Mercury myself with a 1x12 with a fat cap, and I have played with many drummers, including some of the loudest drummers. Charlie T, who used to play with Westernhagen here in Germany, Marius Müller-Westernhagen. I call him the stadium drummer. He uses two 18-inch cymbals as his hi-hat. Wow. So this is like that size, you know. And then he has this Black Beauty snare drum, Ludwig. So this guy is loud. And the other one that I like to play with, who is also loud, is Mel Gaynor in the Simple Minds. And he's another studio drummer. So when he it hurts. And the amp 1 was always loud enough to play with these guys. And by the way, the guitar player, what's his name? Black hair, curly hair, nice guy. I forgot his name. Who plays in Mel's band, also plays an amp 1. So the amp 1 is not a problem. And if you have a 2x12 cabinet, it's safe, no problem. Okay, Michael Sundberg in the video Thomas explains the X-Vive wireless system. Is it played via nanocap? Yes, this is an older video that I've done for the wireless system from X-Vive. And this was filmed simply downstairs in my apartment. And I used the amp 1 and a very simple nanocap. And this is what you hear. Liam Tate, do you ever play through a terrible cheap bad amp just to see if you can make it sound nice? Yes, I had to do that. Yeah, I call this the Gorilla amp experience. I don't know if you had this at a music store as well.
Yeah.
And is this the mark of being a good guitar player?
Absolutely.
Yeah, for me, I was always blamed to be the guy that can play anything and still sounds good. But that's one truth. The other truth is I have to fight to sound good. And to be honest, I don't think I sound that good on a shitty amp. But the quality to create a good tone starts with the player. So, I mean, if you buy a gear that's great gear and you have a shitty player, it will still sound shit. So only if you have a good player and good gear, then you will sound good. If you have a good player that knows how to deal with shitty equipment, he will still make it sound good.
Yeah.
He can try to, find the stuff that he shouldn't do that shows that the gear is shit.
My experience with that was during my time at Session in Frankfurt.
Yeah.
Between 2010 and 12.
Yeah.
One of our customers was Ali Neander.
Ali, of course, killer guy. I mean, he's got tone.
And every time Ali came into the shop, and we didn't even see him coming.
Yeah.
He went into a room, and then out of the room, out of nowhere, there was a sound.
There was killer. Boutique sound.
Yeah, everybody was listening.
Yeah.
I thought, man,
the sound
is very, very good.
Yeah.
And the player. And then we went into the room, and Ali was sitting there with a
cheesy
cheap little practice amp.
Yeah.
And a cheap little beginner Strat Telecaster, some kind of
200
guitar.
euros or whatever.
Yeah, 200 euros. Yeah. And he sounded amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, Ali has it in his fingers, in his hands. Yeah, and that's true. And actually, I have to make Ali a artist because he also plays the Mercury edition. Mm-hmm. He bought one. He used the first one too, but he recently just bought a Mercury. And I know Ali for a long time. And I mean, he's old school. He knows how to make tone.
Yeah.
And Ali. And he has a great guitar. He calls the guitar in German is Gas, Wasser, Scheiße. You have to watch this guitar. Right. This is, I mean, he likes bizarre stuff. Ali is a true artist.
Yeah.
I make Ali a BluGuitar artist. Remember that. Okay, in about a week or two, you see, you go to our website, BluGuitar.com, and you see Ali Neander being a BluGuitar artist. Watch out for the photo. I'm sure it will be funny.
Yeah, but he also has a lot of vintage stuff at home. Yeah,
he has great Marshall collection. Reusenszenen modded stuff.
Yeah.
And he's got a blue box because we played together and he was using his Marshall and a Fat Cap, sorry. He played the Fat Cap and his Marshall, and then he plays the Amp-1, maybe also with, I don't know. When I played with him, he had his Marshall head on top of a Fat Cap because we had to have Waffengleichheit, which is a German word. We had the same length of the weapons. So we decided we have the same cabinet, so we can't be too different. But he had his modified Marshall and I had my Amp-1, and we had Waffengleichheit and we had fun. Ali Neander, killer guy. Okay, so next question. I'm learning guitar in English with Thomas. Okay, yeah, I'm learning English with myself too, practicing English. Okay, Sven Becker, did your strings ever break during an important gig and how did you deal with it? Yes. And how did okay, if I play with my own band, it's the drum solo. But it depends if it's a different show, like I was in Tic Tac Toe, which was a pop band, and we were playing in huge audiences. I had a backliner, I had a spare guitar, and this is the classic thing. It's like, you know, and somebody gives you a fresh guitar. When I do the shows with my band, I don't care. I have a spare guitar usually with me, but I never use it because I don't need it. Mm-hmm. And the other thing is my Strat gets out of tune, so I have to stop playing and make sure it's quick and fast. The other thing is when I'm the boss in the band, I can see how it feels and what makes sense. Maybe it's like the drum solo or the bass solo, or my band Rock Anarchy means anarchy, which means I can do anything. And when the moment is right, I can do anything. I can tell a joke about changing strings and the audience loves it, and then the music comes back in, everything can be cool. But if it's this important gig with the singer, it's all about the singer and not the guitar player. So my job is to be the sideman, keep quiet and deliver great guitars. And if there is a second without a guitar, then I grab another guitar and play with my spare guitar. Okay, Victor the Guitar Nerd asks, I'm interested in hearing how the amp1 will stack up against the Dual Rectifier. This is what we are doing right now. Yep. Guessing I prefer the sound of amp1, I don't know. Rectifier sounds, yeah, okay, let's do that thing. And the last question here is, what is about the high gain tone of Eric Johnson? His sound didn't change since the 70s. That's correct.
Is it really a high gain tone?
Yeah, I have an episode on my pedalboard where I stacked the vintage channel and the Chandler tube driver, and that's kind of a darker high gain tone. Please check the episode with my Thomas whatever main pedalboard, whatever it's called. I explained that kind of thing. But Eric Johnson, yeah, is a great player and he has a great different kind of high gain. It's not a Super Strat kind of attitude what he plays, but he's a super guitar player. Okay, next question. Who was the real inventor of the Kettner Black Spirit floor, and Bernd Schneider or Thomas Blug? I was the inventor of the idea, because I released the amp1 in 2014 on the Frankfurt show, and the Black Spirit came to the market when?
2018, September 2018.
Four and a half years later. So I consider that to be, I was first. 4 years and 6 months or whatever. So anyway, next question. Do you have ever thought of putting totally neutral channel into amp1 and use it with modulus? I would love it. You can use the amp1 with a power amp with your modulus, no problem. Because the power amp stage is using the nanotube, and it's a nice power amp for modelers. Okay, next question. Any progress on other product development? Always progress. Every day we make progress. You just don't see the progress because we are working, and one day, ta-ta, we will be ready. At this point, it's little steps that are internal. And yeah, you have to be patient and wait. Last question. Okay. A rack version would be pretty interesting, even more convenient for gigs. Would that be realizable? I put it that way. With the amp1, I don't see a rack version because it's designed as a pedal. And you can put this in a drawer for a rack system, like open, dial it in, and leave it there. It's so lightweight, it's not so big. It would take probably 2 rack spaces, and you are totally safe. If I would do it in a rack version, it costs me so much money, and I would make you happy, and how many others? That's the problem. Last question. To get the tube amp feel of amp1, did make the power amp boost the low end at lower volumes? No. We use all the stuff that a tube amp does, which is current feedback, power amp sagging, blah, 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 nanotube, and all that stuff that makes the tube amp feel. It's not just like a EQ. Then you can buy a standard transistor amp, and make some EQ. A tube amp is not EQ. A tube amp feel is very complex. And this is now the time to do the comparison. You know what? Let's plug in the other cable so we can have the direct comparison of the Rockerverb to, just plug that out. I need to hear my guitar is on the Mercury. No, I'm not plugged in. Sorry. This might be it? No, this is. We swapped guitars.
Oh.
No,
Right.
cable. Okay, let me check here first to see.
Yeah.
So this is a Mercury. This is a Iridium. And this is
The orange.
Can you unplug the inputs cable?
Yeah.
Just to prove it. Okay, now plug it back in. So that's the orange. And the reverb, we can hear the real reverb tank by rattling. Okay, so true spring reverb. This is our digital spring reverb emulation. No rattling, sorry. So now I'm on the modern channel, which is probably more that kind of tone. That's the amp one, and this is the Rockerverb. I know this is warmer. I have to get less. Yeah, the Rockerverb has a different mid-range, but that's the amp one. Sounds in a similar territory, you know, of course. Is there any setting on the Rockerverb where you go, this is the famous setting, this is what you need?
I mean, you could scoop a little bit more to get that, especially, that's something we should show. Especially because the Rockerverb is, for those of you who don't know about the amp, it's the Slipknot signature, or is it a signature amp? I don't know,
but
but
he's
he's using this kind of amp. And if you tune down,
Okay,
and that is the reason why I think
it's famous.
it's famous, because of that mid-range.
Yeah.
Because it's especially with a 7-string or it reduces a little bit of that boominess of the bass.
So the Iridium is even tighter than the Rockerverb.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. We have a few minutes left. Let's hear the Rectifier, because Hey, wait a minute. I got my... So here is what we need to do. Switch this off, switch this on, change the... I need light my mobile. Oh, my mobile is downstairs. Where is... Yeah, thank you. Okay. Speaker. So brilliant. So, and now the famous dual rectifier. That's the Mercury.
Yeah.
Not bad.
No.
Somehow we have a hum. Okay, somewhere there's a hum. Who cares? Let's try the Iridium.
Yeah, the Iridium is closer.
Yeah, and this was the vintage channel.
The vintage channel, yeah.
Okay, because I mean, we're talking the dual rectifier is kind of a vintage metal amp.
Yeah, and especially this one. I mean, this is
first generation.
Yeah, that's the first generation rectifier. It's not one of the new ones with all the little switches from vintage, raw, modern, and all that stuff.
Yeah. On the rectifier, I think the rectifier is famous for the richness in the tone.
Yeah.
And you know, of all the M's, you know, angles, they are focused, they have the and the rectifier is like.
Yeah.
So and this
I'm blowing everything away.
Yeah, it's like here
get
I am.
out of my way.
Yeah. And that's this is the quality of the vintage channel on the on the Iridium edition, because it has this massive here, you know, and compare it to the one more time.
It's on full, okay? Okay,
I think it's
there's a small difference in the mid-range.
Yeah.
But it's the feeling and the like I said before, the rawness of that to me is the rectifier, the typical rectifier tone, the rawness and the richness of the sound. Yeah,
I mean, okay, we will have more gainy M's, we will have more comparisons, but yeah, I find it always quite interesting to do these A/B things, knowing that I'm never 100% the same, especially when it comes to high gain, because on the high gain is like 1 dB of different mids, you can hear that much. But you have to know this is all down to the fact that the amp is giving you some frequencies, but the speaker is also so important, or the IR. So the question is, what happens with the amp? Is it connected to a speaker cabinet? And what is the sound of the speaker cabinet? That is so important, especially when you play that kind of rich overtones from a metal sound with you know, this like a all the frequencies are equally there, and so the kind of EQing from the IR or from the speaker gives you so much of the character. When you play the Ali Neander vintage tones, you can play with a lousy, shitty speaker and still sound cool. But in the metal world, that's so important. So the amp can do it, but you have to make sure that you have your speaker or your IRs connected to the amp, which is in that world maybe more than 50% even. Okay, I think we are having a lot of time. We spent a lot of time. I want to give you my first. We started with Iron Maiden, and I had my Iron Maiden experience back in the day when I was 70 years of D-Day. And when we did the 70 years of D-Day, we had I had a super special. Wait a minute, switch that off, just to make sure we are safe. So the thing is, was it 2014? Yes, in 2014, I had the honor to do a super special concert in the Normandy, which was the 70th anniversary of the D-Day, when the Alliance troops were landing in the Normandy, and they asked me, being a German, to put together an international band, which had a French female singer, which has an American singer, which had a British singer, which had a German drummer from the Bundeswehr big band from the German military, and a Dutch organ player, my friend Thijs van Leer, and an American bass player, my friend Raoul Walton, and another German chap, which was Bernie Wittmann on keyboards. And we played all kinds of music with this band, which was so cool because Helen Patton, who is actually the granddaughter of the General Patton, who was the guiding the troops into the Normandy against the Germans, hired me to do that. And we played traditional music, like folk music from the Normandy. We played American music. We played German music with Nena. We played English music. We played the whole internet. And we played one song that was related to the theme, which was The Longest Day. And this was an Iron Maiden song that was telling the story of the landing of the troops in the Normandy. And this was the first time when I had to play some Iron Maiden on this guitar. And so I didn't do it properly, but maybe you can have a little fun watching me doing Iron Maiden, being the only guitar player on stage with a vintage Strat, and this will be our outro songs. Thank you, Manuel, for having you. It's always a big pleasure because you have some insights, and you brought all these beautiful shiny guitars with you. We have you back, and see you guys next week, and enjoy our The Longest Day by Iron Maiden, played in 2014 when Barack Obama visited the Normandy. Cheers, see you next week.
Iron Maiden is the only band that really could describe what was happening here. So we want to have a little story about The Longest Day. The next song is called The Longest Day, written by Iron Maiden, a metal band, the only style to get this drama in music. Okay, listen to this. parade all summer long. The built to kill the machines to turn man from flesh and blood to steel. From paper soldiers with bodies on the beach to turn man. I'm getting free. Overlord, your master night, you got enemies close. You're in a gray with sky, these wretched souls. You can't shake him here to take Okay, that's the story of The Longest Day by Iron Maiden.